Good evening, everyone. I think it's important this piece, as I was thinking of this, as I was drawn to the unwilling into the whole discussion of those two other Queen's College old boys, Burham and Rodney, both brought to light by the South African author Vidyaratha Kissoon War. And I think this piece is very important. I have chosen today to dwell on values not often celebrated and perhaps somewhat more difficult to measure. The values of sharing, solidarity, and togetherness. Values that survived and persisted in the midst of and in spite of the colonial deformations. The turmoil and convulsions of the 60s, when Guyana exploded in an orgy of bloodletting and communal violence, were the most deadly assault on these values. Instead of the green shoots of sharing, solidarity, and togetherness, toxic pools of malignity widened and deepening drop by drop. And over the years, the slow drip has continued, poisoning our relations and blighting our development. I've chosen to invoke this web of values, frail as it was, because I believe that there's no greater nor more urgent task confronting us today in our troubled, tormented country. And ours is not the only or even the worst of the fatally riven places of the world. That the overcoming of the accumulated bitterness and fears of the past, if left unchecked, will continue to poison the present and the future. What we require is what John Paul Lederach, in an inspiring book on the building of peace, The Moral Imagination, calls constructive social change, which he defines as moving relationships from those defined by fear, mutual recrimination, and violence towards those characterized by love, mutual respect, and proactive engagement. It is my belief, and I'm not alone in this belief, that if we are to create space for our citizens, within and outside our borders, to come together and construct the free and open society built on the fundamental values of liberty, equality, and justice, and where no citizen shall be enslaved by poverty and ignorance, we must set our face resolutely against the easy reflexes of suspicion, distrust, revenge, and recrimination. But we must do more. We must embrace reconciliation and aspire to a higher humanity. In this regard, no one has been a greater inspiration for our time than the Titanic knight Nelson Mandela, the apostle of reconciliation. It is universally recognized that the central fact of Mandela's life is his extraordinary humanity. In South Africa, they call this Ubuntu, a sense that one's uniqueness on earth is the quality of humanity one extends to others. Mandela was not the first to embrace this life-affirming principle. The luminous Mahatma Ghandi, in his teachings and practice, summoned us to the highest ideals of human behavior. All of Gandhi's campaigns of nonviolence were underpinned by a hunger for reconciliation, for the cultivation of friendship with his opponent. And, as we know, he was murdered for not hating enough. Closer home, almost 26 years ago, our Caribbean suffered its greatest storm of modern times as the Grenadian Revolution self-destructed in a storm of violence and murder that opened the way to the invasion by the U.S. Armed Forces. A few weeks ago, the last of those responsible for the murder of Prime Minister Maurice Bishop and his colleagues were released after 26 years in prison. Their release was not uncontroversial. More than a year before their release, on New Year's Day 2008, Nadia Bishop, the daughter of Maurice Bishop, issued a remarkable call for reconciliation with the people of Grenada. Nadia Bishop's words should be etched in stone and committed to memory by the entire political class of the Caribbean, and particularly of Guyana. Pain does not justify staying in pain. I don't mean to imply that our individual stories are invalid, or that we should diminish our personal experience. But we have focused on our stories of loss for so long that we must let them go if we are truly to embrace reconciliation. Let us from this day forward tell a new story about our people. Let us tell a story of forgiveness, of reconciliation, of renewed purpose, of renewed faith, of renewed hope. We are too small a nation to continue this way. We all say we want world peace. Do we see the need to speak with a cordite if we are a bishop supporter? Do we see the need to speak with a bishop supporter if we are a former detainee? I suggest that it is time that we see the need. We must reach out to each other. Let us be examples of peace in the world. If we can't find common ground with our brothers and sisters here in our own country, why do we expect peace to exist anywhere else in the world? Let each of us individually this year be the change that we want to see in the world. Mervyn Claxton, the former head of UNESCO's anti-apartheid program, reflecting on Nadia Bishop's summons to high humanity, has written that whether she knew it or not, Nadia's call for unconditional forgiveness and reconciliation appealed to deeply entrenched values in at least two of our ancestral cultures. Claxton made the point that traditional societies in Africa and India accorded great importance to such values, which they saw as absolutely essential for maintaining social harmony and promoting solidarity in their multicultural societies that were constructed on fundamental community values of integration, solidarity, and togetherness. If we can learn to revive these values and let them provide a foundation for that constructive social change, if we embrace the idea that the quality of our life is dependent on the quality of life of others, that the well-being of our grandchildren is directly tied to the well-being of our enemies' grandchildren, then we will have opened the space for renewal and hope.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Vidya. Thank you, Rupert. And to close this evening's readings from In the Skies